I was trying to be flexible and let you choose whatever you want to talk about.
Why don't we start with domestic policy then?
Okay, well let's do redistribution of wealth. Okay.
All right.
Ready?
Yep, good.
We're here at CPAC with David Webb. He does Sirius satellite radio, and you've seen him a lot on Fox News, debating every issue under the sun. So we want to ask him a favorite question of ours. Should the government redistribute its citizens' wealth?
No. It's that simple. There's a role for government when it comes to taxation and the collection of taxes at an appropriate level to maintain its responsibilities to the citizens, protecting the nation, things like that. I'm not one of these people that lives in this world where it's all black and white. There's a lot of gray area. That's the honest part of it. But redistribution means that you're actually taking money out of the economy in some form, which is the foundation of the nation. The foundation is your economy. It lets you afford your social programs if you need to. It lets you afford your military. It lets you afford to function as a society. So if you get into the business of shifting money around, you're actually taking capital out of an economy that can then be multiplied, and wealth capital is what we're talking about here, not just dollars and cents.
So you're in favor of some redistribution of wealth?
No.
First you said none.
No, I said no redistribution.
Okay.
I'm saying you can afford.
Let me define redistribution so we're clear, we don't have misunderstanding.
Right.
What I'm talking about is forcefully taking money from some citizens through taxes in order to provide free goods and services for others. Not what you mentioned before, like to pay for the military to protect us,
No,
or to pay for police,
government shouldn't be
or
in that
to pay
business.
for the courts that we all need in order to resolve our disputes. I'm not talking about taxing a citizen in order to provide a service provided to that citizen that you're taxing.
Right.
Like when you pay a gas tax when you use the roads or something like that.
Right.
I'm talking about taxing some citizens in order to provide free goods and services for others.
Absolutely not.
So
that
you
is
would
not a role of government.
Yeah, okay. So you would be against that kind of what I would call redistributive tax.
Right.
Okay. So do you think that Medicare, no, not Medicare, Medicaid, would that be redistribution of wealth, Medicaid?
In form, it is a kind of redistribution of wealth. But when it comes to Medicaid, there are differences. One, it's optional. Medicare and Medicaid have optional components. You pay a forced tax. I understand that part. But the problem is it's become more about taking money to support a system that is economically unsustainable. It needs to be restructured, and I think the reality, whether people like it or not, is you're never going to take it away from government control. So then how do you restructure it? You have to clean up the waste, the fraud. You have to get into means testing so it's applied properly. It's, again, back to those gray areas.
Okay,
you have a system you have to fix. You're not going to fix it by suddenly cutting it.
But just for the record, I mean, Medicaid, it taxes some people in order to provide free goods and services, in this case health services,
right,
to people that often don't pay any income tax.
Some that don't pay any, some that do.
Right,
Again,
but mostly it's for the poor. Mostly it's for poor people that don't pay.
They
income
have federal
tax.
income tax.
Right.
They pay into the system in other ways.
That's true,
So,
but they don't. But
right,
the Medicaid money comes from mostly from income tax.
Right. So how do you fix the problem? The problem is
so
not always just fixing Medicaid itself. The problem is how do you get more people out of poverty? And while you do a number of things, you lower the usage of Medicaid. You're always going to have poor people.
But in principle, you're against that kind of redistribution of wealth.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so what about foreign aid, where they tax American citizens and they give the money to foreigners?
It's a function of government that you don't have a choice. That's not really redistribution. There, the term isn't really the right term.
Well, they tax the American citizens and they give the money to foreigners.
There is a relationship,
right,
in foreign aid that goes beyond this, quote, simple word redistribution. If you get a benefit out of that, and by the way, I'm for revisiting exactly what we do with our foreign aid and what kind of return on that investment. There is a relationship that goes to a global policy. It goes to where you are as a nation, how you interact with your allies, as well as how you defend against your enemies and your opponents. So again, to simplify it with this question of is it just redistribution is wrong.
But it is redistribution, right?
It's still too simple and it's wrong because it's not fully accurate. The reality is in those gray areas, you either have to look at it's a cost-benefit analysis. Foreign aid, if applied properly, can help you sustain a neighbor in some form or relationship which can benefit you. That's
so we
an
have
intangible.
to give them money in order for them to be friendly with us?
Sometimes you do. But what
Really?
I want,
Why do we have to do that? Shouldn't friendship be based on shared values?
That's a fantasy that some people want to believe in. Here's the reality. By helping other nations be better, eventually they hopefully will become more sustainable on their own. What I would like us to do with our foreign aid, however, and some of the mistakes we've made in recent years, is to make sure that there's a return, or if you want to call it, a sliding scale set of activities or results that we need from the people who get foreign aid. We need to revisit that. We give away money too easily to other nations.
Well, absolutely, I agree with that, but I think in principle, it's pretty clear to me at least that you are redistributing money from Americans to the
you know what,
foreigner.
honestly, get off the word redistributing. You're simplifying a very complex situation, trying to put one word
what
around
we
it.
defined it as.
No, no, it's not defined that way. When it comes to how we interact, it's too simple.
Okay,
and that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is trying to put one word and say this applies to everything, when in reality that's not what it is.
Okay, you think that foreign aid is not redistribution of wealth. Okay, we differ on that. What about farm subsidies? Are you in favor of farm subsidies?
I'm against farm subsidies. It's one of the biggest train wrecks we've had. Right. Frankly, if we do things like fixing tax codes, fixing regulations, let farmers produce, we can take away the subsidies, which, by the way, subsidies are subsidizing losses. Something I could do with an S Corp, you could do with your company, farm, tech, whatever it could do. So the problem there is that we talk about the subsidy and never about a solution, which is fixing the tax code, therefore removing the subsidy.
Well, so I'm wondering why it is that you're more sensitive to the needs of these foreigners than you are to the needs of the farmers, or... I'm against all of those redistributions of wealth.
Then frankly, you're being too simplistic.
Why is that?
To say that this is a linear equation of whether it's foreign this or foreign that, and redistribution is fundamentally flawed in its argument, because it's not that simple when it comes to how we deal with domestic policy, foreign policy, how dollars are applied. And there are interests that come from the application of money. It's part of the world. It's part of how it works. And
we have to give money to these other countries, like Egypt. Let's take a country, for example, say Egypt, that we give a lot of $3 or $4 billion to them every year. Why